Hey everyone, welcome to this training. I am so glad you are here. My name is Bex Cronshaw, and today you are going to learn how to reclaim your body and your sexuality so that you can find a healthy, loving relationship and create the family you deserve. You're going to learn how to say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no. You're going to learn how to see your own beauty, power, and strength, and how to wake up feeling calm, at peace, and free, so that you can actually live in the present moment and not in the past. And this is what has enabled me to go from being in an abusive relationship, stressed out, anxious, working 24/7, and a lifetime of issues with food and hating my body, to feeling calm, relaxed, happy with my body and my life, and anxiety free. And who here would love to be able to do that? Well, just imagine what life would be like if you had a partner who adored you and respected you. What would happen if you actually felt worthy of receiving their love? How would life be if you didn't have to cope with anxiety, with PTSD, depression, or flashbacks every single day? And how would it feel to really be in touch with your body, to be able to experience pleasure and joy instead of shame? Wouldn't that just be so incredible? Well, it is possible. And today I'm going to show you how I was able to do all of that with what I'm just about to teach, and how not only has it worked for me, but it's also worked for the people I work with. Now, as you and I both know, sexual abuse and sexual assault can hurt us on such a deep level, and it can affect every single aspect of our life, from our body, our romantic relationships, relationship with friends and family, our sex life, our jobs, our self-worth. And frankly, that's just scratching the surface. So when I get messages like these from my clients telling me that they like how they look in a dress for the first time, how they don't hate their body anymore, okay, how they're anxiety free for the first time in their life, or how they just met an amazing new partner, this brings me so much joy, because this means that they're finally claiming the life for themselves they deserve. So who is this training for? Well, it's for you if you've suffered through sexual abuse or sexual assault, either as an adult or in your childhood, and you're ready to heal now. It's for any woman who is tired of feeling broken, unworthy, and not good enough. It's for women who want to break down their protective walls, to allow real joy and love into their life. And it's for you if you just want to live a normal, happy, and healthy life without being tormented by nightmares, flashbacks, PTSD, or anxiety. Who is it not for? Well, it's not for you if you're not willing to invest time and energy into yourself and to your healing journey. And unfortunately, it's not for you if you're under 18. And it's not for you if you're not yet ready to heal and to make the changes that you need to make in your life. A lot of you here may already know me, but I also know a lot of you have no idea who I am. So you might be wondering, well, why should you even listen to me? Well, I was abused from the ages of 7 to 17 by someone in my close family, and I've been on my own healing journey for about 9 years now. I've been coaching survivors of sexual abuse and assault for the last 3 of those years. And where I started out, I was in an abusive relationship for about a decade. I had a history of eating disorders that went right back to my teenage years. I've been through numerous phases of self-harming in my life. And through most of my 20s, I was taking a lot of recreational drugs and drinking a lot as well. And frankly, I just hated myself. Now, I remembered nothing of my abuse and of most of my childhood, actually. And so as I started my journey, I had so many fears that I was making it up, okay? And that people just wouldn't believe me. Now, I did have a talk therapist, and I spent about 4 or 5 years following this channel, right, with very little change in my life. And to be honest, I was pretty frustrated. I was searching for a solution. I was reading a ton of books, and a couple of them in particular really resonated with me. So this actually led me to ditching my old school therapist, and I found someone who worked in a completely different way. Now, things actually started changing for me immediately, right? It was just working so much faster than what I was doing before. And I reckon I achieved more in those first 3 months than I did in my previous 5 years combined. Now, I will be honest, it was a bit of a rough ride at first, right? But what I realized over time was that the results I was getting were so incredible that it was really worth this challenging period at the beginning to get me to the point that I'm at now. So just a little disclaimer before we go any further. My results are not always that typical. The reason for this is it takes effort and it takes a commitment to yourself to get results. I did 5 years of talk therapy, getting nowhere before I started to work with my body. And then I was in a place where I had to undo years of programming of feeling powerless and feeling worthless. But fast forward a little bit, and now I'm really grateful for all the work that I did, because I'm manifesting the most incredible life for myself right now. So I want to talk through a few of the old methods, right? The things that I'm aware, having been through this process myself, are not very effective and really not helpful for this healing journey. Okay, and the first one we've touched on already, which is talk therapy, or sometimes CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, the trouble with these therapies is they're working with things that are in our conscious awareness, right? i.e. in our mind. Whereas a lot of the latest research actually shows us that trauma is held in a cellular level in our body, right? It's not in our mind. And actually, when we talk about memory, traumatic memory is very different to traditional memory. Okay? In fact, as you've heard as part of my story, I have no normal memory at all, right? Just a few flashbacks. So what happens is when we work with talk therapy, we're not going direct to the place where the trauma lies. Okay, hence it's slow and it's inefficient because it's really indirect. The second thing that I've tried and failed at miserably, okay, is dealing with it alone. Now, look, abuse and assault so often happens or is done to us by someone close to us. Okay, often a family member, a partner, a boyfriend. Okay, and these are people that generally we trusted. And sadly, they broke our trust. So what happens is on an unconscious level, we protect ourselves, right? We just decide, okay, we can't trust anyone. We're better off figuring this out on our own. But what that so often means is that we end up feeling really isolated, right? Feeling like no one is there for us, like we're just alone in the world. That was my reality for about 30 years. Okay, and that just keeps us stuck in our old patterns. So yes, it might keep us safe on one level, but the reality is it's hurting us on so many other levels. It's keeping us disconnected and it's keeping us alone. So we're just surviving, right? We're not really living. We're not really living our life. Self-help books. Now, as I've talked about already, I read a lot of books at the start of my journey, and many of them were helpful. Okay, but where I ran into a problem was with the implementation of what I was learning. Okay, I actually didn't feel safe enough in my body to implement any of the tools that I was reading about in these books. Now, there's something called co-regulation that's really important when we're trying to heal from trauma, right? When we're healing from our abuse and from our assault. And co-regulation is the connecting with, or sometimes just being in the presence of someone who is safe and connected to themselves. Because what happens here is that your body starts to pick up on cues of safety from that person. And when we're at the start of our healing journey, it's actually much easier to co-regulate with another human being than it is to self-regulate on our own. So if we stay stuck with our head in books, reading all day, every day, we really miss out on this enormously valuable opportunity to co-regulate and to use this anchor of safety in another person to help us move forward on our journey as well. And Facebook groups. Now, again, I'm a member of some Facebook groups, right? They can be okay. Occasionally they can be helpful. But one of the fundamental parts of healing from abuse and assault is about being seen, right? It's about being heard and being validated. And it's about someone really seeing you and saying, I believe you, okay, this happened. Now, so often the people in Facebook groups, and this is meant with the utmost of love, okay, they're still on their own healing path. Okay, they're still following their own journey. And what that means is that they still have a lot of unhealed trauma. Okay, so sometimes they're so wrapped up in their own story, their own life challenges, and their own struggles that they don't have the capacity to see you or to hear yours. And I suppose on the other end of the scale, sometimes I've seen advice in Facebook groups that can actually be quite dangerous. As we heal, as we work on our trauma, it's a very delicate process, okay? And it's really easy to be triggered, to be thrown back into old memories, and also to be re-traumatized. And we have to be really mindful of that as we go on this journey. I just wanted to include this study here just to highlight the ineffectiveness of CBT, okay, or talk therapy. And the reason I'm including this is because talk therapy is still so common. Okay, it's the channel that most people go down when they have stuff that they want to work on. Now, this isn't to say that talk therapy isn't helpful for some people. Okay, it's just when we get into the realms of healing trauma, right, working on sexual abuse and sexual assault that affects us on such a deep level, we're just not bringing the right tools to the table. Okay, and this is evidenced here in this study. It was 255 female veterans, most of whom had suffered some kind of sexual trauma. And as this study came to an end, 60% of the patients still had PTSD, and 100% of the patients were clinically depressed. Okay, and this is at the end of the study. So really important that we are aware of the right tools to do the job. Okay, when it comes to healing our trauma and reclaiming our body after abuse and assault. Hopefully you're with me so far. Can we have a yes? Excellent. Okay, so if all of this stuff doesn't work, well, what actually does work? Well, if there's one thing that I would love you to take away from today, okay, if you remember nothing else, it's this, okay, it's that you need to work with your body. And this is a quote from Bessel van der Kolk, okay, who is really leading the way in trauma research these last few years. And he says that for real change to take place, the body needs to learn that the danger has passed and to live in the reality of the present moment. Now, when we are traumatized, okay, we learn two things. One, that it's not to be safe in our body. And two, it's not to be safe in the present moment, right? We get stuck in the past and we get stuck dissociated or disconnected from ourselves. So the process of healing then is actually to come back to ourselves, back to our body, and back to the present moment. And just to expand on that a little further, again, Mastin Kipp, someone very well known in the trauma and healing space, and he says, you only manifest what you feel safe manifesting, which means the primary reason you don't have what you want is because a big part of you doesn't feel safe having it. So in other words, okay, whatever it is that you want in your life that you don't have right now, right, whether it's the partner, whether it's children, whether it's the house, the job, whether it's just waking up in the morning feeling free from the weight of the world or free from anxiety and depression. Okay, the reason you don't have those things is because your body doesn't feel safe having them. Okay, so just to give you an experience from my own journey, when I started my healing, I was completely cut off from my body. Okay, I felt absolutely nothing. And that's because when I was traumatized, when I was abused, I left my body, right? I disconnected because my body wasn't safe, right? That's where the trauma was happening. Okay, so for me, it was really important to have help as I went on this journey, okay? Because it was just impossible for me to connect to my body by myself. It was just too scary. But as I came back into my body, as I started to build this sense of trust and safety within myself, this is what built the platform for me to then start to call all the other things that I wanted into my life. So, with me so far? Yes, excellent. So we know that we need to be in the body. And the nervous system is how we start to understand how this helps us on a practical level. So, our bodies are always picking up cues from our environment. We call this neuroception. Okay, are we safe? Are we in danger? What's happening around us? And in the context of our nervous system, we have three different branches. Okay, we have what we call the ventral vagal complex, right, which is the green section on the left here. This is where we feel safe, where we feel connected. Okay, then we have what we call the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. Okay, you might have heard this called fight or flight in the past. And this is when our body starts to pick up cues of danger from our environment. Okay, when we start to realize, hang on a second, we're no longer safe. And then over here in this red section here, we call this the dorsal vagal complex, or in other words, collapse. Okay, and this is when a threat becomes so overwhelming to us that we think it's a very threat to our survival. Okay, and so our system simply shuts down, cuts off, and disconnects. And you might have seen videos on YouTube, for example, of a gazelle or a deer being chased by a lion. Okay, and that the moment in which the lion catches the gazelle goes limp and plays dead, right? And that is this dorsal vagal complex being activated in the gazelle, right? Hang on a second, I am moments away from losing my life here. Okay, I don't want to feel the hurt, the pain, the terror of this moment. I'm going to shut down. Okay, and our human body works in exactly the same way as a mammal in this sense. So during times of abuse, okay, assault, trauma, what happens is we go through this process, right? We start to realize there's a danger, okay? And then we might even come down into shutdown. But we can get stuck, okay, in either of these. And what happens is if we get stuck in this danger zone, we get stuck in sympathetic energy, we just live there, right? We survive there from day to day. And this would look like anxiety, stress, PTSD, flashbacks. Okay, on the other hand, if we get stuck in this place of life threat, what that can look like is depression, shutdown, dissociation, maybe split personality disorder, maybe a lot of sleep or just a complete detachment from the world. Now, important to know, okay, that these things happen automatically, right? This is something that's built into our human body as a survival instinct. So this stuff is all happening behind the scenes, whether you like it or not. And it's really, really important that you know that this was just your body's way of trying to keep you safe. Okay, so every experience, every symptom that you have right now, everything that is impacting your life on some level where you go back to your trauma, your abuse, your assault, it was your body's way of trying to protect you and that you didn't do anything wrong. We can think about this system a little bit like a ladder. Okay, we call this the polyvagal ladder. So we have safety at the top. this fight or flight energy in the middle, and we have life threat at the bottom. And so really the key to healing is to be able to master your own nervous system. Okay, and the first step to that is to actually be able to recognize the state that you're in on the ladder. Right? Because it's from this place that we can then start to learn how to move up and down the ladder. So just a little example from a client I was working with here. A few months back, I started working with a new lady, and the session started and she started to panic. Right? Her heart starts to race. She feels really scared. And she tells me, I think I'm on the verge of a panic attack right now. So this is the body's fight or flight system kicking in, right? This is her telling us something feels dangerous right now. Okay, and that's really valuable information, because in that moment, what we can then do, or what we did, is start to focus on all the things for her that brought in cues of safety and connection into her body, right? To calm her nervous system and to move her back up the ladder. Now, there's a number of tools we can use here. Sometimes they're different for everyone. But as we spoke about earlier, this ability to co-regulate, right? This connection to another person who is already in this safe zone can be super, super powerful in these moments, right? Because the other person's nervous system is actually pulling you back up the ladder and back to a place where you can feel safer again. So we know we need to be in the body so that we can start to work with the nervous system. And we know that moving up the ladder into our ventral energy is how we heal. With me so far? Yeah? So how do we actually get into our body? Well, we do that with the breath. The breath is kind of like the bridge, okay? It takes us out of our conscious mind and it drops us down and into our body. And it's when we're in our body that we can begin to contact the places in our body that hold the trauma, and we can begin to heal. So most of us live in our minds, right? We play old stories on repeat about how we're a failure, how we're not good enough, how we're broken. But maybe you can even try this now, right? Even just bringing your awareness to your breath. Noticing, okay, is my breath in my stomach? Do I feel it in my chest? How does the breath enter my body? This can actually just start to create that little bit of distance, that space away from the stories, to start to focus on the work that we really need to do to heal and to recover. So again, just another little example from my own practice. I had a client who was a binge eater, right? That was her way of coping with all of this deep unhealed trauma that she was holding. And so for her, her entire life was consumed by planning calories, by thinking about food, feeling guilty for binging or for eating certain foods. And this is just indicative of being stuck up in her head, right? But the moment we start to breathe, we start to become present with her body, with her internal experience. And it's really making contact with this internal experience and allowing it and making it okay that is the very essence of our healing journey. Because if I can share with you one thing that's been the most valuable thing of all from everything that I've done to this point, is that all healing really is coming home. It's about coming home to yourself and coming home to the realization that you're not broken, that there's nothing wrong with you, and that you have nothing to be ashamed about. So I just want to touch on a couple of false beliefs here. Okay, we've talked about this one a little already. And so the first is that talking about my trauma will help heal my trauma. So think about this analogy. It's a little bit like you going to the physio and telling them you have a problem with your knee. And the next thing you know, your physio is working on your shoulder. Right? There might be a small link, right? They might help a little bit, but frankly, it's not going to help you anywhere near as much as if the physio just cracked on and worked on your knee, right? And this is the trouble with talk therapy. Talk therapy is working up in the head, up with the conscious mind. But that's not where your trauma lives. Okay? Your trauma is living in your body. And one of my clients here can give you her experience of this far better than I can. So I am going to hand over to her for a quick moment.
But definitely the talking therapies that I'd done, it was the point where I thought, I'm so sick of the stories. I know intellectually what's, what my story is, and I make the sense of it, but that wasn't moving me forward in terms of any further healing. But I honestly got to the point where I was like, I don't think I'm going to find anything that I don't already know. It's beyond my intellect, and it was that recognition that it had to be body stuff. And having someone hold the space sounds really obvious, but having someone hold the space while you allow is huge, to be held safe. And something else that we do is you always make sure I've got another safe place. Like, we guide through, don't we, and find the safe space within me or within my environment that's a place to go back to. So if things feel unsafe, which they haven't really massively, to be honest, but I'm sort of blown away by it. And I now think everyone should do it. Like, every human should do breath work. That's where I'm at with it now. Do you know what? I'm so much more present in my own life. I'm so much more in the moment, which is kind of crazy, because I'm a Meisner teacher as well as the stuff that I do, and that's about being in the moment, right? We teach what we best need to learn. But it's really just, I'm leaving myself alone. Like, I'm not giving myself such a, the inner critics are less problematic. When they do chip in, I'm much more able to just bash them away. And yeah, and there's just a sense of feeling good in my skin, like safe in my own skin. And it's only by having that I've recognized that I haven't had that through most of my life, which is quite sad in some ways, and it makes me feel a bit sad, but it's also great that I've been able to be in my skin.
The next false belief is that my breathing has nothing to do with my abuse, my assault, or my trauma. Now, I can really associate with this one because I thought this for a really long time. But I have to be honest and say, like, if I had discovered the link to the breath years ago, I would have saved myself so much time and so much energy and probably money doing all of this stuff that I was doing before. It frankly has been the most life-changing part of the path for me. And it seems like the Navy SEALs think this too. And this photo is of the Navy SEALs, okay? Because these guys have actually been using the breath for years now to help regulate them, to help keep them calm and functioning in really extreme, high pressure, dangerous situations, right? The Navy SEALs have to handle the most extreme conditions known to man. And so they've actually been bringing in breath specialists into their training to ensure that they're fully prepped for their job. So I'm of the opinion, if it can work for them, it can definitely work for us. I'm also linking here another study that shows us how the breath can actually change us on a cellular level when we use it in the right way. And if you remember before, we were talking about the fact that the trauma is actually held in the cells of the body. So when the breath is acting on a cellular level, which is where our trauma is held, it actually enables the release of the trapped energy, which is the trauma, from our body, so that we can let that energy go and so that we can heal. And lastly, there is a bit of a false belief that when I say we need to work with the body, it means that we need to be doing something physical, like yoga or swimming. Or I think sometimes there's even this perception with using the breath of some spiritually enlightened being like starving themselves for days, meditating at the top of a mountain in India for, 15 hours a day. So I would like to set your worries at rest and say that it's not any of these things at all. Now, it can be, but that's not what we're going for here. And that actually we can work with the body and we can work with the breath, sitting in a chair from the comfort of our own home, and actually get results that are just as good, if not better, than the yogi at the top of the mountain. So, do you see how the self-harm, the way you hate your body, you restrict food or binge, the anxiety, the alcohol, the drugs, the abusive relationships, these are all just ways of coping with the hurt and with the pain of your deep and unhealed trauma. And that when you become the master of your body, the master of your own nervous system, it's really possible for you to invite in a loving, respectful partner into your life so that you can create the family you deserve. It's possible for you to wake up feeling calm and at peace instead of experiencing crippling anxiety, depression, PTSD. And maybe most importantly of all, it's possible for you to speak up for yourself, to set healthy boundaries so that you can feel safe in your body, safe to enjoy sex, and safe to ask for what you want. So we've talked a little today about how abuse and assault disconnects us from our body, okay? Because we learn that being in our body simply isn't safe. So what can be really challenging is this process of reconnecting to our body. Okay? It can be really scary. And so that's why it's super important to have a safe space and, if you can, some support to go on this journey. Now, in this training, we've talked a lot about why it's important to work with your body and your nervous system. We haven't really had time to talk a lot about the how-to, okay? And that's super important in this process as well. Yes, we can use the breath, but there's a very specific way we want to do that. And honestly, this is really delicate work. It can be hard to know how fast to go, right? Too fast, and you can risk being re-traumatized, whereas too slow is so frustrating. And I understand that because I've been there myself. So now there are two ways that you can move forward to start reclaiming your body and your sexuality. Okay, the first is that you can do this the hard way. You can leave this training and you can try to figure it all out on your own, just like I did. Okay, which will mean going through a lot of trial and error, doing hours of research, and there will be a lot of failures and setbacks, right? Trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. And it is going to take a lot more time, like it took me. And you can definitely do that, but it is going to be frustrating. It is going to be discouraging, and it will take a lot more time to get where you want to be. Or you can get my help to implement everything I've just shown you so that you don't have to go through all of the trial and error that I did. Okay, where I'll be able to guide you step by step through exactly what you need to do to get the results you want as fast as possible so that you can skip all of the frustration, the failure, the uncertainty, and the guesswork. Okay, because one of the worst things that you can do in this process is do things by trial and error. Okay, when we're working with trauma, when you get things wrong, not only are you not moving in the right direction, but potentially you're also re-traumatizing and hurting yourself as well. So, if you're serious about making a change right now, about healing from your abuse or from your assault, and about reclaiming your body, and you want to see how I and my team can help, then you can book a call with us and get a free strategy session where we'll take a look at where you're at. Okay, we'll identify the main roadblocks that are holding you back from success. And if it seems like we can help solve those problems, if it seems like we're a good fit to work together, where we can quickly help you reclaim your body and your sexuality, then we'll show you what that looks like. And then we'll let you decide whether you want to become a part of it or not. So just click the button next to this video to schedule your free strategy session. On the next page, you'll just fill out a few quick questions so we'll know more about where you're at and what you want to accomplish. And then on the screen after that, you can pick a time on our calendar to schedule your free strategy session. So click the button next to this video to reserve your spot now.
Now I understand a bit more about the body-mind trauma connection. I've done counselling in the past and it helped to some extent, but it never really got rid of it all. It was quite entrenched, I guess. Whereas with the breath work, it's it's helping deal with the emotional side that you hold in the body. And that for me has really helped move me forward, because by getting rid of that deep-rooted emotional attachment, I'm able to see situations a little bit more clearly and actually step out of the situation more often, so that I can deal with it in a different way. Whereas before, even having had counselling, I would find myself going into default setting and not really parenting how I wanted to parent. There's been a lot of aha moments in each session. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, now I know why I've been doing that. And it's just lots of little pieces of the puzzle I've just slowly been connecting. Okay, that wasn't about me. That never was about me. That was about the other person that inflicted that on me. It was their hurt, their pain. And being able to see it from that point of view and know that actually I'm worth more than I ever thought I was worth. I'm going to get emotional. Just having you hold that space for me to be completely vulnerable, but knowing that I was completely safe with you. Just having that little cocoon of safety, knowing that you've got my back while I work through what, for me was some really traumatic bits at times. I'm more confident in myself. I'm much better at putting my boundaries in place, and if you overstep them, I'm going to say my moods are definitely not quite as up and down as they used to be. It's much more even. I can communicate better with people around me because I know what I want, and I'm now asking for what I need and what I want from people. I'm much more filling my own cup now. I'm not just giving all the time like I used to do, and hence why the big emotional downs and the ups, because I'd drain myself so dry that I'd take a number of days out to recuperate, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm brimming full of energy again and be thingy. Whereas now it's mini breaks every day. I've had a few people say that I'm definitely a different person to whom I was, that I'm definitely a lot calmer, a lot more happy, bubbly than I have been.
Or perhaps some of my other client stories resonate more with your journey and where you're at right now. One lady here I worked with who quit binge eating for the first time in 15 years. Another lady I worked with recently who was so terrified of being pregnant, of entering another relationship because of all the terrible relationships she'd been in the past. And here she is, pregnant with a new partner, happy and excited. Or another client here who managed to let go of those self-critical voices, the self-criticism, the shame and the hate, and actually managed to start living anxiety-free for the first time in her life. So if you'd like to be our next success story, if you'd like to see how our program can work for you to heal from your abuse or your assault and to reclaim your body, then just click the button next to this video, fill out some questions, and tell us a bit about your situation. And then you can schedule a time to speak with me personally. We'll take a look at your specific situation. We'll figure out exactly what you need to do to get to the next level and show you exactly what I do to help you get there. So thank you so much for being a part of this today. I appreciate you being here, and I wish you every moment of success on your journey. And from my heart, you deserve to heal. You can heal, and I can tell you that because I've done it myself. Sending love.